Well, we've had a couple of people also who want to know about finding for their families a doctor who practices integrative medicine and who's open to the sorts of things that you talked about today. Is there, do you have resources you can offer people?
Sure. Well, I would say I would turn them back to, KIWI Magazine online. You have a great blog system there, and I just started writing. I've done a couple of entries. The very first one I dedicated to this concept of green pediatricians, which is is really something that is near and dear to my heart, and I encourage them to go and read that post. And we talk about what it is to be a green pediatrician, what families should be looking for, why we think that's important, how to find someone a little trickier, and there are some resource lists available online. The best thing, honestly, is look in your community through word of mouth and talking to other parent organizations that are holistically oriented. I know up in our neck of the woods here we have the Holistic Moms Network, but there are many throughout the country. Or talking to, if you have a chiropractor, or you have a naturopath or a nutritionist, someone who is more holistic, if they know of any practitioners and have personal experience. The one list I know through the American Academy of Pediatrics on our section website, which I'm sure we can point people to, it's the section on integrative medicine through the AAP, does have a list parents can search for pediatricians who are self-declared integrative pediatricians. That may mean different things to the people who post it, but you can search by your area as well. But again, I really think, ask in your community, look around for people who are similarly oriented, and don't give up. There definitely are more and more practitioners, coming out to different parts of the country.
Great, that's great to hear. Well, it looks like we have time for maybe just one more question. So I'm going to, let's see, we have a question about itchy eyes and eye drops. Is there, what do you recommend for that? Is there a homeopathic solution there?
Sure. With eye symptoms, some of these eye symptoms can be brutal and really, redness and irritation and discharge. There are, of course, prescription eye medicines, which I've noticed lately are really expensive. Some people will call and say, it's going to cost me, $90 in my prescription plan. And sometimes, they are the most effective things. I would say, however, that there are homeopathic alternatives. There are many of the common homeopathic brands, such as Boiron or Highlands, do make eye drops or eye solutions that are homeopathically based, which I have found, or even just saline drops, salt water drops, can flush out pollen. Some people use compresses, cool compresses. There are a variety of fruits and vegetables people sort of cut up and put on their eyes, ranging from potatoes to onions to a whole bunch of things that have anti-inflammatory activity. Chamomile tea bags a lot of people use. This might sound strange, but infants that have eye discharge irritation, using breast milk if the mom is breastfeeding, just a drop or two in the eye, may sound strange, but really does work for a lot of eye irritation. If you're comfortable doing that, that's another way to go. Or again, chamomile is another thing that may be effective.
Wow, that's great. Never heard some of those. I love it. How do you really know whether it's allergies or something else? What's the best test for determining, if the runny nose is due to seasonal allergies, or a kid who has a lot of mucus in the morning? How do you know what you're dealing with?
That's a great question. It comes up because we see kids all the time, and even adults go to their doctors and say, my nose has been running for a while. I don't know, is this a bad cold? Is it a sinus infection? Are these my allergies? I never really had allergies before. Well, some of it is the symptoms. So if you have a fever, that's pretty well, not allergies and probably something else. Also, if something's going on for 2 or 3 days, it may just be a cold. But if it's been going on for longer than a week, when you go outside or your child goes outside, the symptoms get worse. Typically, there's no fever. We're talking about nasal congestion or drippy nose, itchy eyes. Itchiness is a big symptom that goes along with allergies that you don't always see with colds. We do work with parents and say to them, look, a runny nose for a few days is not an evil thing. We can work to get through it. The saline, all that stuff still works. But if it's going on for a while, it's more chronic, there's no fever, and there's been congestion, you should consider allergies.
What about for a baby? Do babies develop allergies? Are they colicky? Is it allergies? Can you tell?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually interesting because over time, in my training, I was taught, no, babies never get seasonal allergies. They just can't get them. It's not possible. Well, I can tell you after years in practice, they definitely do. It's unusual, and Children do a fair amount more and more, but babies rarely do. However, we do see more and more cases of that. And if you take your baby outside and all of a sudden they develop runny eyes, itchy eyes, runny nose, guess what? They could have allergies, especially if you do or there's a strong family history. When I talked about in the beginning other symptoms such as reflux and eczema, these may or may not be signs of allergic disorder and specifically to certain foods in our diet, but it certainly bears asking, and it's one of the things you have to say to yourself, what is different about this baby's environment? What are they doing? While they're breathing, they're eating, there are a few things that if they're chronically congested, they have a lot of reflux, they have bad skin conditions, and it's chronic, it really bears looking at the role of allergic disorders.
Speaking of babies, when you were speaking about infant feeding, does the advice you were giving impact mostly food allergies, or were you also talking about environmental and seasonal allergies with the best foods to feed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's both. I think that avoiding food allergies helps to avoid a progression of this allergic march, and so that hopefully you can, we do know kids whose symptoms of allergies, their runny noses, their congestion, is due to eating foods, dairy sometimes, other foods. However, when I was speaking specifically about those factors in foods, the nutrients, the vitamins, the quercetin, the bromelain, the vitamins A, D, C, even B vitamins I didn't really get into, there are many of those nutrients that can prevent and ameliorate allergic rhinitis symptoms.
One of our listeners was asking about using a humidifier in the bedroom of a child with chronic stuffiness and difficulty breathing through the nose. Is that helpful, or does this bacteria live there? She wants to know.
Yeah, well, that's the key question. Is it's the humidifier basically places, you put water in a machine and it spills it into the air to make the air more humid, and over long decades of time, this is something that parents have adopted. I have to say I rarely find it all that helpful. It makes us feel like we're doing something, but more often than not, we kind of leave it there. Mold is really the biggest issue growing in a wet, moist area that you really need to purify these machines at least once a week if you're using them. Some people use distilled white vinegar. They're more helpful with dry cough conditions such as croup. And even in studies using humidifiers, it really is the direct application of steam or mist. So nebulizer machines that just have saline in them, or the use of shower steaming them up, that may be more effective. But for dry coughs or croupy symptoms, humidifiers might be helpful. I rarely use them for other conditions.
We also have a question about mold, about being allergic to mold. If someone's been told they're allergic to mold, is that the mold that grows on food, or is it the outdoor type of mold? And does the advice that you were giving relate to that kind of allergy?
I was speaking mostly about aerosolized mold or environmental mold, things we find from mold, both in and wet areas, moist areas, not mold on food particularly, although, so I guess moldy food might be an issue too. But I was speaking specifically about breathing in mold, and it can be a very big irritant to the immune system for people, not just nasal congestion. Some people find in their workplace, or kids in schools are coming home from school very congested. They come home and they're fine. Mold can be something that in moist areas in homes or schools can cause allergy symptoms, and so that's where air filters come in. But really, we have to look at those environments, look for moist, ceiling tiles, moist areas that haven't been addressed. Can also cause significant immune issues beyond the stuffy nose, coughing, asthma symptoms. So that's something we do need to pay attention to.